Good evening and welcome to Mindful Life 256. I'm your host, Nathan Springer. Thank you for being here. It is the 18th of July, 2023. The year is moving along. Now, July is a kind of month. It could be a bit of a difficult month, really and truly, because July has no real public holidays. Nisi, woy. Your favorite mindful host is up and staring me in the eye. Since I started the live, she has been just up staring me in the eye, waiting. I don't know if you could hear her. But you all started something there. This young lady feels that it is her mission every night to be on this live. But we're talking this evening, at least the starting of what we're talking about. Hi, Hexen. Hey, Hexen Pibo, it's been a while. Blessings from the sister Isle. Yeah, man, RL, hold it down, bro. What's going on? How things? That go have a water park soon. Well, that water park seems like it will be a scene, Tomorrow I must do the Tobago live. It's been a while since we had some Tobago news, and it seems like Tobago news is in the news. Come, child. Yes, they can hear you. It seems like Tobago news is in the news. So we're gonna have to talk about some of that tomorrow. The Minister of Public Utilities, though, he made some warnings for you all Tobagonians, So I don't know about that water park. We'll see how that goes. Been a long time studying and been working. Usually listen to you on YouTube in the background. Nice, man. Hello. That's what you're adding to the conversation. Well, we're starting talking tonight. An interesting story I saw. When you talk about where the government spends its resources, when you pay your taxes, when the government collects money, you're hoping that it's there to help people, to help the needy, help those that are in need. And one of the key areas for that in Trinidad and Tobago, that's why when people talk about people hungry in Trinidad and starving, I'm sorry, I don't really believe that. Usually Trinidad has a lot of government help for a lot of people that may find themselves in difficulty, namely the food cards being one. And I was looking at some of the food cards, some stories coming out of some of the food cards, and seeing what was going on with these cards. What was going on? What was the money being spent on with some of these food cards? And over the last couple months, this whole Ministry of Social Development, it's been having quite a lot of leaks. It seems like a lot of the stealing happens in the place where you're supposed to be putting money aside for the poor and hungry. Isn't that a sad reality? Let's jump into that story here. 4 Social Development Ministry employees charged over stolen food cards. Tisk. 4 employees of the Ministry of Social Development and Family Services now face disciplinary charges arising out of investigations into the disappearance of 32 food cards in 2022. According to the charges, the 32 food cards were used to make purchases amounting to $117,200. $117,200, Good night, Cardell Drizzy Edwards. No live? Yeah, man, J. Chris. I'm live over on TikTok. I don't know why you're not seeing it if you're not seeing it. If you're over on TikTok, hit that like button, double tap that screen so that the notifications could head out there faster and faster, so no one misses the notification. Anyone who wants to join, they'll be able to get that notification there quickly. Good night, Jonte. What's going on? You know, watching how often I see people joining and unjoining the live, and why is it that TikTok kicks people off the live ever so often? You know, I see people join and then I see them off and then I see them on again. TikTok hiding the live from me. Yeah, you know, TikTok with the fight down as usual. You know how it goes. During the budget debate last year, the Minister Donnacott said the cards had been stolen from the unlocked drawer of a ministry employee in August. She said it was only 2 weeks later that the permanent secretary was informed. Cox said then both police and the ministry were investigating during the period that the cards went missing. Cox said money was allowed to accumulate. The four who were sent on administrative leave in October include the director of the program, a clerk, an administrative officer, and an administrative assistant. A fifth person took early retirement and escaped the disciplinary charges. So somebody else was inside the mix, and they decided, you know what? Let me take front before front takes me. I'm going to take my early retirement and dive out here. This is in the food card area. This is food cards for the poorest people in Trinidad to get something to eat. Cox on Saturday confirmed 4 employees of the ministry's social welfare division were placed on administrative leave, but said her ministry had not been informed that any of them had any charges filed against them. Cox said the ministry could not comment further pending the investigation. The Ministry of Social Development and Family Services takes any allegations of fraudulent activity very seriously and are fully cooperating with the authorities in their investigation. The disciplinary charges are that on or around August 2nd, 2022, the 4, without reasonable excuse, acted in a manner prejudicial to the efficient conduct of the service when, having responsibility for the safekeeping of the food cards, they failed to secure them, resulting in their being stolen. He's smart. I was jumping out to, well, yeah. And if you look at these charges, this is the problem very often in government. If you look at what they're saying in these charges, even if found guilty, the most generally is going to happen to them is they would lose their job. $117,200 of taxpayers' money disappeared. Poof. Somebody spent the money. That money is not going to be returned. And at best, 4 people may lose their jobs. At best. Response to the allegations. In his response to the allegations against him, the director said he was made aware of the missing cards at a meeting on August 2nd. He said the cards were initially housed at one department, then transferred when management changed. The cards were held at the central office in the desk drawer of a clerk under instruction to hold them there because of the large deposits on them. The director said the keeping of the new cards was not stringent, so he believed the senior officer with the responsibility for the cards lost sight of the replacement cards being required to be kept under lock and key as those cards are loaded and ready for use. All right, I went through these left before his career record gets tarnished. Yep, I went through the defenses here. Basically, everyone is claiming plausible deniability. They're saying they were not trained. We were not trained on how to keep these secure cards because it had a switchover that happened. It was on another division in another department, and then it switched to this division. And as it switched, you know, there wasn't proper training, there wasn't proper oversight, proper procedure was not followed. And after they noticed it missing, everyone immediately reported it missing. Just by the way, the clerk said she was given minimal training when she started work in November 2021. She said during the handover of duties, she continued putting temporary and permanent food cards that had been sent to head office for cancellation in a box on her desk, as she had seen her predecessor do. After starting work, she sent 3 lists to the bank detailing who the cards were for and their value. The first list was sent on January 6th last year with 37 names. So they didn't have the training, you know. they really didn't understand how to keep cards with funds on them secure. This was unknown knowledge to these people in this department. But everyone that is claiming, all of the four are claiming that they didn't recognize the cards were missing. You know, they didn't know the cards were missing yet, and they only found out on August the 2nd when all the proverbial feces hit the fan. The problem is, when the evidence has been accumulated now, it seems like this story still isn't adding up. Cards missing long before. On August 29th, Permanent Secretary emailed the director telling him the clerk claimed 18 cards had gone missing in June. So the revelation of all the 32 cards missing was made August the 2nd. But allegations of missing cards were known since June. The director forwarded the email to the clerk, who responded that the 32 cards were all of them all together. And then on August 2nd, the other 14 were discovered missing when another client came to collect her card. So here's what's strange to me, right? They didn't have training on how to keep these cards secure. One client came to collect their card in June because these were replacement cards, by the way. They were supposed to be replacing cards, I suppose, that were lost. One client came to collect their card in June. The card was missing, along with several other cards. Several other of these food cards were missing since June. Okay. A report was made about these missing cards. But then the rest of the cards, already loaded with funds, was still kept in the same unsecured drawer for a further 14 to go missing when another person comes for the replacement card in August. So when the first 18 went missing, no one recognized that there may be a bit of a security breach keeping loaded cards filled with lots of money in an unsecured drawer. No one realized by then. All right. Cox, who is the minister, also told Parliament the withdrawals and spending patterns showed the cards were used at businesses not authorized by the ministry and to buy things other than food. Now, I don't totally understand this. I have never had a food card. I don't know how they work. I assumed that it wouldn't be very difficult for the ministry to load the card. And I mean, it's a recognizable card. Good night, Otis. It's a recognizable card. I thought you could not use the card other than its purpose. Oh, like, I'm a bit confused. Are you telling me you could take your food card and just go anywhere and spend it freely? Like, if you're spending it in an unauthorized place, doesn't that send off some kind of alarm that prohibits money from being accessed on it or something like that? Like, is that something difficult to do on that end? Limit where the card could be spent? I wonder, Jamie Ford, I don't know. I don't know. How is this possible? The report provided, this is the minister speaking, the report provided on the replacement cards between October 2021 and August 2022, and about 30 food cards, there were balances being accrued for approximately 6 months, and these balances ranged between 5,000 and 39,000. Listen to this. We are talking about replacement food cards that were left in a drawer, were not supposed to be in use, and this is the kind of money that was found. As much as 39,000 was found on the card. So these replacement cards that are being kept in a drawer unsecured in some clerk's desk for the about 6-month run up before the cards started going missing, these replacement cards that were not supposed to be in use were being loaded with more and more money. One even reached $39,000 on the card. Like, this is starting to look less and less like a mistake. This is starting to look less and less like a mistake. And I always wonder with these things, are there no alarm bells anywhere around this entire incident? No alarm bells. No alarm bells anywhere around could be ringing. Okay. Who is making the call to load money onto these cards? Who is authorized to make that call? Who in the bank is authorizing the payments through? Is there no accounting being done? Good night, Anika Bess. We are talking about replacement food cards. The investigation of the card accounts, she said, showed that in the first month of 2022, the replacement cards received continuous monthly top-ups with no spending activity. But that changed from June 2022 to August 2022, when significant top-ups were observed. So, understand this. The cards went missing since June, at least some of them. And between June and August, the cards were being topped up. This is how your taxpayers' money goes, you know. And the problem that I always say with these things is the lack of accountability. What's going to happen to who? Who pays for this? Who is at fault? Who is going to pay the serious consequences for this? Is it that these 4 people may lose their job, their public service job, which I mean is a bit cushy, but they may go right out into the private sector and get another job. And whoever has the card and spent the money already is sitting down with the 117,000 plus that they spent. Who is going to actually pay back for it? And you know, the problem here is some of the people accused may actually be partially innocent, at least partially. Not fully knowing the whole extent of the scheme, maybe being part of it peripherally. They didn't even know that they were getting involved in a scheme so serious. Somebody called them and told them to do something and they did it. You see, that's the difficulty with a lot of the public sector, with the government running a lot of things. There's so much deniability going through everything that it's difficult, nearly impossible, to get accountability coming out. Who will be held accountable? Who is going to be the accountable person? Because it's nobody's fault. No one person did the act. There were 50 individual players all through the series of events. No one person striking the final death blow. So, who? Who do you blame? I thought it was only $500 a month per card. Well, Otis, that's part of the suspicious activity. These cards were not being spent. No one was using the card, but yet someone was continuously topping up the card. This seems, I don't know, it seems like a well-planned and orchestrated heist. Somebody loaded up the cards in preparation. Somebody made sure the cards were easily accessible. And then somebody lifted them and spent them all. I think really and truly, if they wanted to find out who, not just who needs to lose their job, but who the thief was, the person who stole the cards, I don't think that's an impossible thing. But you know, it's if someone really wants to find it out. I don't think, because you're talking about money, money on a card. Money on a card is something that is traceable, and we have a lot of cameras around Trinidad and Tobago. I don't think this is something impossible to find, but it's the will to do it. And these 4 people are already caught. They will be charged, and you know, that's who has to pay the blame and pay the cost. You know, moving on to another story though. I read a story, was it last week, Thursday, Friday, somewhere around there, about the top performer in SE, at least according to the Sanatan Dharma Mahasabha. The SDMS, the Ministry of Education, they did not release, of course they're not going through all of that, Nisi. The Ministry of Education didn't release the top performers in SE. They said that, you know, that causes too much problems, too much negative competition in the thing, so we aren't going to do that. The SDMS say, well, that's your business. We are going to do it all on our own. And they had their own ceremony honoring their top performers. Personally, I am more of the view, let the people know who performed at the top. That's my view. The people, this is an exam. Let people know the entirety of how they performed in the exam. That's something I think that children should be deserving of knowing, and recognition for the performance too. I don't think that's a bad thing, but the SDMS did it. And I was going through the story of who the top performer was coming out of the SDMS organization, and his parent has had something to say, and I was speaking about his mother. I don't know how many of you will hear in that particular live, but just to refresh some of that, the mother was speaking about not pushing the children too hard and pushing them too difficult. You know, they didn't have any extra lessons. They didn't have to go through that extra lessons and stuff. They allowed their child the freedom to, you know, relax their mind and all of that. And right down at the end of the article, they said, meanwhile, Jai Paul, who is the boy's mother, who quit her job at Toyota to become a full-time mother, said it was important to always be supportive of your children and not to try to choose their career for them. And I made a note of that, where, you know, regularly in this life, we regularly discuss about gender and gender rules and the advancement and progression of gender rules, the changing of these rules, and what are the benefits, what are the takeaways, the disadvantages. And regularly you hear people talking about, you know, you have that one parent who is at home seeing about the family side of things and the benefits that come from that, and who is more ideally suited for that and all of that. The discussion ensued from there, and someone inside of the live said that this was an expression of privilege. This mother that could quit her job to push her son in this direction showed privilege. That was so much privilege. Like, you know, it's some kind of bias in society where only a select few people could do these kinds of things that would allow their child to excel. And oftentimes what is insinuated when people talk about privilege, they're insinuating that the reason someone else might not be excelling is because they do not have access to that privilege. All right, okay. Noted. We had that discussion when the person said what they said. But then I saw another article come out recently that seemed to prove the point that we were trying to make against this privilege discussion and reasoning back then. Let's read this article. Listen to this. Mom of top performing SEA pupil pleads for help. Jubilant after topping the Clark Rochard Government Primary School in the secondary entrance assessment, Alexander Sinanan is excited about donning the grey pants and white shirt of Naparima College San Fernando when the new school year starts in September. But ensuring Alexander is as ready as his peers is a tough ask for his single-parent mother, Diane Sinanan, as she's without income for the next 2 months, with bills to pay, food and school supplies to get to get purchased. Sinanan works in the cafeteria at Shiva Boys Hindu College, Penal. With school on break, there is no work. A job at a school cafeteria is the kind of job that allows you to be around when your child needs you to be around. This is a single mother. And you could see there were sacrifices made to make sure that her child performed. Without the presence of whatever privilege some people might suggest from the previous example where the mother left her job to see about the child. No privilege like that here. I think it's a matter of priorities. Speaking at their home in Barakpur yesterday, Sinanan said the family had to overcome many hurdles as Alexander prepared for examinations. But as Sinanan worked all week and did errands on weekends, Alexander and his sister worked tirelessly to ensure he was ready for SEA. We really were not sure what he was going to pass for, but we had our hopes on his first choice, which was NAPS. Boys, when we saw it, we were all in tears. It was excitement, joy, it was nice, and we are happy because it was a struggle. We have been through many difficulties, but hard work pays off plenty, Sinanan said. While his sister had already been sourcing used books online, there are still some outstanding, along with uniforms, shoes, a book bag, and stationery. Now, here's another interesting thing. Here's another interesting thing I noted. Listen to this. She has already paid his registration fees. When I look around and I see so many parents since the SEA exam making much clamor about the fees that schools are charging, are you going to expect me to pay all of this money, the wicked to the poor people? I understand, I could relate. But I just find it interesting as I read this story. The help that she is requesting is some shoes, uniform, used books. But the main part, registration fees, those already covered. I think when you look at things like this, you see priorities. And that's what I think the real secret is. Not privilege, that's the wrong P word. Priorities. I'm a teacher. Regularly I see it. Give free lessons, and there are some people that would spit on the free lessons. Spit on it. And then there may be some of those that clamor about what they're doing for the poor people. And then there are some people who would pay every last cent they have to, even if it's overpriced, access something just for the possibility, for the reasonable possibility that it would benefit their child in the long run. Priorities. Way more than privilege. I think it's a matter of priorities. Some people see schooling at a different level of importance, and some see it at a lower level. You know, on the school fees business, I saw an opposition MP speaking that, you know, the school fees are an expression of the reality that the government is not handling their fiduciary duties with the schools properly. The government isn't giving the schools adequate money, and I think that's a legitimate question to ask. When the schools are asking for more money, we have to ask ourselves, why are the schools asking for more money here? What is the reason the school is asking for more money? Is it that someone in the process, in the board, in the hierarchy, in the administration is pocketing the money? Someone in and around this whole school system is becoming a millionaire off of those $1,500, $2,000, $2,500, $3,000, $3,500. Though that little fee that the schools are asking for, is someone getting very wealthy off of that? Do you think so? Honestly, I do not. I do not think that the fees paid to the schools, the fees that the schools ask for outside of what they are helped with by the government, is some kind of grand embezzlement scheme where somebody is building a mansion off of those fees. It may be, but I just don't think so. I think if that was the case, we might have found out by now. So, if the case is this money is going towards the school to do something to benefit the school, to me, as a parent, to me, my question would be, okay, first up, are they stealing the money? Okay, they're not stealing the money. It's actually going towards the children in the school. All right. Are they taking the money unfairly? Is it only me that has to pay and no other parent has to pay? Is it that I'm being singled out? No, I'm not being singled out. All of the parents are being asked. So, like, to me, this money goes to benefiting my child's education. Like, how could I be vexed with the school? How could I be angry with the school? Like, okay, I could demand accountability. Show me where the money goes. Show me how much money it takes to do these things that you're telling me it's going to do. Okay, I could demand accountability. But to me, to demand a totally free ride, I just don't see things that way. For me, I don't see things that way. That does not really make sense to me. Not if I want the best for my child. If I want the top of everything for my child, then the fees, if the fees do go towards the school and benefiting my child, then by all means, take the fees. Moving on to another story now, continuing from the idea that the Prime Minister had about the specially vetted unit, you know, the new unit inside of the police that he means to pay more also. I think it should be voluntary, not forced. Well, the truth is, Caribbean Prince, it is voluntary. That's what the ministry has said, because the nature of the public education system in Trinidad is the ministry assures free education. So it is voluntary. It has always been voluntary. If you don't pay any of those fees, any of those costs that the school asks for, they are not going to kick you out of the school. That's not what the schools were saying. I don't know which school was saying, which school was demanding it. Which school had it as a demand, written down with the legal language that it was a demand? I may guess that no school did that, because a school doing that may get themselves in hot waters. What the ministry told the schools wasn't that you were demanding it. They told the schools that by asking for it at the same time when registration is going on, it makes it seem like a demand. Now, I think the schools were purposefully making it seem like a demand. I think the schools wanted to put pressure on the parents to try to make them give these fees. I do think so, but I don't think the language was actually written like that. When I went to register my daughter last year, the principal held the book list hostage. Yeah, and that's the thing, you know. Regularly, if you're a parent, like if you're a parent who is really interested in furthering your child's education and you went looking at all the top schools, these are things that aren't surprising to you. I know of parents who donated computers to schools' computer laboratories, you know, just as a gift as their child got into first year. If you understand what I mean. As a gift. They donated the computer, and well, their child got into the first year. Not saying that one had something to do with the other, but... And... Yes, that's all well and good, but don't demand not everyone could afford. I agree, not everyone could afford. But this is exactly what I'm speaking about here, Caribbean Prince. This is exactly what I'm speaking about here. I notice many of the people that clamor about can't afford are the people that would play mass, that would be in threats on a regular. And then I look at the single mother whose child plays top in SEA and she is working in a school cafeteria. She has another child. She speaks about struggling. She speaks about needing some help. She has already paid all of her registration fees. Priorities. Some people that speak about, that $3,000 is so much for that child, what am I expecting me to do, and how am I supposed to pay as a poor man and smoking a pack a day? Like it's priorities. It's priorities. And as Nisi says here, if the fees are being used to better the environment, I don't mind paying it. That is literally my point. That is literally my point. If it is that the school was pocketing this money and you're seeing someone building a mansion off of your school fees, that's one thing. But it doesn't even seem to me good evening, Scafty. It doesn't even seem to me like the problem many parents have is that the schools are spending the money badly. Many parents aren't even questioning how the school is spending the money, like they don't care. Shouldn't you care? Think about this. If the school is saying for us to run this institution, ideally, we don't have enough money. The government is not giving us enough money to run this institution, ideally. Okay. If you do not give them the extra money to run the institution ideally, then the institution will not be running at its best. If the institution is not running at its best, who suffers? Wouldn't it be your child that goes to that institution who would be the one suffering? And then, let's say now, we accumulate cultures in different schools. So I have the Mind School on this side and I have the Full School on this side. In the Mind School, I accumulate children whose parents have the culture that we will do whatever it takes. We are going to find a way to pay whatever fee the school deems necessary to make sure the school could run at the top. Whether they're rich, poor, in between, that's what the Mind School people do. Now I have the Full School people that have the view the government had to pay that by. They are public school by the government had to pay that, or they can't force me to pay nothing in this place by. They're wicked to the poor people by. Okay. So the Full School only uses the money that the government gives them and they don't get anything extra. But the Mind School, all of the parents are willing to pay whatever extra it takes. If we leave those two cultures to go on for 20 years, do you think there would be a difference coming out of both schools? Do you think there would be a difference? Jamie Ford says Full School fully dance. Aisha Springer, sometimes minor stuff is being done in the schools and it's stuff from the teachers that chip in. I know Aisha Springer. There are some schools where there are teachers who take things out of their own pocket to help out. And some people don't understand how things cost. Some people don't understand that. I know in some schools they have a cost for the exams. Listen, if you write your exam on a printed sheet of paper, that costs money. The print doesn't happen magically. It has to be paid for. Caribbean Princess Nathan, my problem is throw it out at a meeting that this is what we need. Caribbean Prince, how many PTA meetings have you been to, bro? Like, I could tell you, my mother was an active PTA participant and they speak about those things in PTA meetings. You may be surprised. You might be surprised. Some of those fees you see looking like registration fees at the start of the term, it might be from a PTA meeting. The parents might be the ones who came up with all the different fees. You might be surprised. I know how some of these PTAs run. Some PTAs are money sharks, you know. Some PTAs don't play with that money, you know. Some PTAs don't play with that money. And there's a reason. There's a reason for that. When the school itself could have money tucked away. I remember there was once upon a time where I taught in a school outside of direct employment from the ministry, because a PTA could have reached out and hired a teacher privately to fill in for a teacher who had to leave. Some primary school have printing fees each term. If not paid, your child can't get end of term tests. My daughter registered for SAGs and they actually listed the fees as PTA fees. Correct? You're right, because they didn't call it registration, they call it a PTA contribution. Exactly. You see, that's how many of those schools are run. Some of those PTAs are powerful PTAs. Some of those parents are very serious about the school business. They monitor the school like a shark. You go to the PTA meeting, trust me, you'd find out how the money is going in the school. But then some of these parents, they don't go to the PTA meeting. They never went to a PTA meeting through the child's primary, secondary, anything life. Never went. And then they're surprised. Where does fee come from? Well, maybe if you were in the PTA meeting, you would know where it came from. Nathan, where are the parents finding money for Fed tickets? Well, that's what I said. That's what I said. They had school branded merch on sale. I was impressed. Yeah, that's how many of those schools do it. And then Militant Rockstar, you see that culture. And you imagine that culture for 50, 60 years. And then you'd see some government schools and some parents ignorantly look at SAGs and say like it's some kind of privilege something, you know. The rich people send their children there, you know. So it's a money thing. It's a cultural thing. It is a cultural thing. The culture of the school. And many people are establishing and showing to the world that, hey, I don't have the requisite culture for my child to go to this school. The culture that I need is I want junior sec culture. I just throw my child in the system chews them up and spits them out. Ministry of Education doing too much. Let the school charge their registration fees, please. Some schools have gift shops basically. Yes, they do. And you know, that's why I am regularly kind of on the side of privatize the whole thing and finish. But that is cruel. That is cruel to many people. Many people may not be able to afford the whole privatization business, but you want to be in the people's school but don't want to help uplift it, so you just want to take. Yes, I watched a video about the complaint on the fees, and I understand the complaint. I understand it. I understand how a complaint could be made. But I saw, quote verbatim, a parent say, who you expect to pay that? In my mind, I'm thinking, if my child is being educated by an institution, who do you expect to pay that? Your child is being educated. What do you mean? Why are you shocked that you are expected to foot some bills in your child's education? Caribbean Prince says they can have fundraisers during term and highlight the needs. And if the fundraisers don't raise enough funds, Caribbean Prince, you see, I don't even really like fundraisers too much, you know. A fundraiser has to come really good to make sense to me, because very often fundraisers really and truly what they do is take the money from the same people anyhow. So some church would hold a fundraiser, and the same 50 members of the church would buy the ingredients and make a barbecue, and then the same 50 members of the church would buy the barbecue. Like, best you all just gave the money and forget about it. Eat your belly full. It's you the same money. So is it that, and you know, these are things that I think are a bit of colonial minded kind of thinking, where okay, you can't ask me for the fee. You can't ask me for the fee. No. Trick me to giving you the money. Invite me to come and party for a family day and have a ring toss, a bottle toss, have a little gambling here, have a wine and jam session that I have to pay for, and by the end of all of that, by the time you have 6 fundraisers for the year, you'd pull in the registration fee from me. Like, why is that necessary? This is a school. You're paying to educate your child. If you want a fet, go in the bar. If you want food, go in the restaurant. You pay the school to educate. The school doesn't need to feed you and wine and dine you to try and trick you into paying to educate your own child. Reality is, some people don't even have $2 to send kids to primary school. Check the absenteeism rate. Far less for secondary school. Jamie Ford, as I said, I do teach. And there is not a one-for-one correlation between absenteeism and poverty. What that means is the poor people aren't always the people that can't come to school. Poor people who have an education culture find a way. The stories that everybody's grandmother, mother, uncle, nenen tells about when it was my days. I used to have to walk 10 miles to go to school, and you know, children could still walk to go to school. It's not we haven't evolved out of having feet. We still do have feet. You're really not understanding the mindset of some parents. And you see, some people will never understand it. Some people, until they are put in the situation to see how some parents act, they would always think. And that's why I really don't like this overly bleeding heart, like everyone is a victim. Everyone is a victim. No, some people are not victims. They are not too poor. They are not too stupid. They are not uneducated. They are not uninformed. The government isn't down pressing them. The Syrians aren't hurting them. The 1% isn't bypassing them. The government isn't fighting down the poor people. They are lazy and have a corrupt culture and a bad attitude. There are people like that right now. And many times, that's the reason the children feel. It would be interesting if we could do a study. Go through the children that perform the worst during CXC, or the majority of children that drop out before Form 5, and evaluate their living situation, their parenting, their parent situation, and see if they are all at the bottom of the wealth level in school. If it's all just a matter of poor, I would suspect that you would find out it is not. It is not a matter of just poor. Trinidadians were poorer 50 years ago, and they still sent their children to school reliably. Do not excuse bad behavior, it encourages it more. That's my view on a lot of these things. Do not excuse bad behavior, it encourages it more. And let's be realistic. The actions have consequences. You encourage people to do the right actions to have the right consequences. You can't allow people to do any action they want and attempt to force reality to create the consequence that they want to. It does not work like that. That's that kind of overly Western progressive line of thought. We need to disrupt all consequences so that people could act as they want in freedom. It doesn't work like that. Aisha says, I don't have a good job, but I make sure I pay $180 weekly for 2 days to ensure my kid go her lessons. Aisha, I teach lessons. I teach classes. The private tuition, and I've been doing private tutoring since I was in teen years. I'm talking over 10 years. And private tuition has never been something cheap. For a 2-hour session, it was $200. Now it's about $300 for a private tuition one-on-one session. And the people that hired tutors for private tuition one-on-one session were not just the richest of the rich. That was not what it was about. There were some parents who legitimately sacrificed a lot to pay a tutor to come and sit down with their child because they were aiming at a scholarship for this child, and some of them got it. You could look, you see 7 years down the road, the parent that was willing to find that extra $8,000 over the course of a year, that really and truly, if they thought about it, if they tried to write out a budget, they could not have found an extra $8,000. Somehow they found it. 6 years down the road, child got a scholarship, graduated first class, got a job quickly. That child is working somewhere in the United States for an aeronautics company. Was the sacrifice worth it? Or would it have made more sense for that parent to say, you see, me, the government supposed to be paying for a child to educate it, you know. I'm not supposed to have to pay no extra lessons for my child. Lessons? What is lessons? No, boy. That wickedness, the government just trying to keep down poor people. I got a first-hand view of it. Some parents are straight up the devil. I got a first-hand view of it last month when they were looking for transfers. Yep. Aisha says, yes, so true, a lady charges me $90 for a 2-hour session one-on-one, and I'm grateful. Wow! Wow! That is very good. Hold on to that lady if she's good. That is very good. One-on-one, 2 hours. That is really good. That is very... Oh. I'll let you all know. A good time to mention the sponsor. This is sponsored by Mindful Education, the educational institution that I run. We are not that cheap for private tuition. Our private tuition doesn't run that cheap, but if you are interested in private tuition for any of the CXC or CAPE subjects, you want that one-on-one assistance, we have those tutors. You message us and we will arrange that. We also have learning pods available, which are small homeschool style classes. We have them in part-time and in full-time if you want full-time homeschool style learning classes from preschool, so full-time preschool going all the way up to CXC. So if you are interested in that, hit us up. We have a full-time CXC pod starting coming this September, so if you are interested in that, jump in. We always have preschool pods running also. So yeah, folks, I think that's all I have for now. If there are no further questions or comments, I'll dive out. Call it a night. It was good. Any further questions or comments, people? Of course. I should say, of course, because we miss way too many positive. Too many Tobago Talks positive, and I know Tobago hot. This too early. This too early, you say Trini Hotep? But we've been here. LG losing the spotlight because LG is hard to spotlight. It's difficult to spotlight. And the campaigns during LGE are not about local governance. So, how would you spotlight local governance if the campaign isn't really about local governance? The opposition isn't campaigning on local governance, and the government is answering a lot of the opposition critics. So, they aren't fully campaigning on local governance either. The town hall in Wim was great. All right. Well, we'll talk about that positive. I see, especially when they campaign like it's, yes, that's exactly it. I see that water was in the topic over the weekend there, and I also saw houses being raided. I remember saying that I didn't think Uncle, y'all hush. I remember saying that I didn't think that incident with that propaganda business would end too quietly, and it seems like it is lining up like that. I figured that it would go kinda in this direction. They don't have the pull in the corridors of power that other people might have. So it will be interesting to see how that all ends. All right, people, that's all I have for now. I hope you guys were educated, informed, or entertained, and I will see you guys in the next Mindful Live, which is going to be tomorrow evening around 9:30 p.m. Tomorrow is Wednesday, middle of the week. We're talking Tobago. Lots of news coming out of Tobago, our sister isle. So we'll be talking Tobago tomorrow, Wednesday. Until then, people, hold it down. Stay safe. Peace.